fallout from President Trump's historic announcement on the Paris Climate Accord met with celebration from his base, but condemnation from many CEOs and global leaders. The French president saying the U.S. has turned its back on the world. But the decision could reverberate far beyond the political realm. Tonight, ABC's Matt Gutman takes us on a journey around the globe to confront what scientists see as disturbing signs of global warming.
Across the globe, reports of bizarre, seemingly unrelated phenomena. Cicadas emerging 4 years early in Washington, D.C. Poppies in the Middle East spontaneously growing much more potent, producing heroin of astonishing strength. Airline pilots reporting turbulence more violent than ever experienced before. Record numbers of great white sharks.
Got to be frightening if you're thinking about going into the water here.
Swarming just feet off of popular California beaches. Scientists insist those strange phenomena are actually related, triggered by global warming, which critics say President Trump disavowed today.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
The president pledged to, quote, keep America first by rejecting that 2015 non-binding agreement signed by 174 countries to cut back on carbon emissions.
I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris. I promised I would exit or renegotiate any deal which fails to serve America's interests.
But all of the world's pollution has imperiled the planet, as we learned, teaming up with scientists across the Pacific, in Australia, Hawaii, and California, on a forensic investigation of what they say is a matter of terrifying urgency.
If we do not stay the warming on our planet, corals will be the last of our worries. It's our species that will be vulnerable.
There have been sightings.
You are paddleboarding next to approximately 15 great white sharks.
Beach closures, and last month, an attack, which is why every week Professor Chris Lowe, head of Cal State Long Beach's Shark Lab, deploys a small armada of boats and jet skis, drones, and helicopters. The goal is to take a rough census of the swarming great whites by spearing them with a tag like this.
All right.
On a foggy morning last month, we joined them.
Hey, Chris, good to see you again.
The trip out shockingly short because the predators are shockingly close, cruising just feet off the beach, flanked by multi-million-dollar homes.
So white sharks are born at about 4.5 to 5 feet long. That's a baby white shark, about 60 pounds.
Okay. Ryan, it looks like you're about to go spearfishing.
Sort of. Going trying to find some sharks.
You jab this thing and what releases it?
This is the dart. This will come off the spear. This will stay under the skin, and then it'll just get pulled away as the shark swims away.
Oh,
and this will be dangling off the shark.
But to tag them, you can't stay in the boat.
You gotta go on the tugboard. Yeah.
The water is murky and the fog is thick. But the sharks announce themselves, fins cutting right through the water.
Here, fishing. Boom! Okay, so he missed.
Finally, the grad student finds his groove. From this drone, watch him stealthily sneaking up on this great white. The tags relay the shark's information to receivers placed up and down the California coast.
Were you surprised at the sheer number of sharks that we saw today?
Well, yeah, I have to pinch myself. This is crazy. This is Long Beach. I've been working here for 30 years, studying sharks. I never thought I would actually see the day where I would see that many in one morning.
But why are they here?
The water's warm, it's shallow, so there's not a lot of predators, and then there's lots of food.
Warmer water has been a boon to great whites, saving many Pacific sharks their annual migration south to Mexico for the winter. But it is cooking a species anchored to the seabed. Coral are tiny, mysterious creatures living in dazzling, colorful colonies, but they're builders. Over generations, their exoskeletons create those tree-like shapes, which about 25% of the world's fish depend on. The granddaddy of coral is the Great Barrier Reef, the world's largest living organism. It sprawls across 1,400 miles of the Australian coast, basically the distance between Miami and Maine. But warmer than normal sea temps cause coral bleaching, which occurs when the corals expel the algae that live in their tissue.
What you're saying is that 50% of what is arguably the largest living organism on Earth is dead, or will have died in 18 months of bleaching.
50% of the corals died in the last 18 months.
And this is not they're not going to recover.
Once you're dead, right?
Last year, the northern third of the barrier reef experienced bleaching, killing 30% of the reef overall. This year, an estimated 19% died in the middle section of the reef, and the worst may not be over. That's why we've flown across the globe towards the epicenter of this environmental disaster, Townsville, Australia.
Great to meet you. Welcome to Australia and welcome to the Great Barrier Reef. It's beautiful.
Scott Heron is part of a team from NOAA's Reef Watch that predicted the past 2 bleachings at the Great Barrier Reef in 2016 and 2017. They were right then, and they're terrified about the prospects of a potentially cataclysmic 3rd consecutive bleaching. Heron is the kind of wonk who rides his bike to work, but we are taking him on a much longer ride, up the coast to Mission Beach. The evening before our big dive, we map out the route with Scott and our guide, Karen Bell.
All right, so we're going to depart from here. We'll go all the way out here to along this side of this is one of the 3 of the Potter reefs. A lot of this has limited damage to it.
And suddenly I realized the mortality is happening now. Much of it not even yet documented.
This is 80–90% dead all along this wall, and it was dead pretty much 2 or 3 weeks ago. So anything that was left, that mortality level will be even higher.
What's it like to see the stuff that you've grown to love and basically care for die like that?
It just rips your heart out.
The next morning, Karen brings the boat and we load in.
So you may ask yourself, why do they have so much gear? Well, why the Pelican cases? The answer is that we have a couple of really cool gizmos. We got your 360 cameras, we got your underwater cameras. Some of the stuff has never been tried before, so fingers crossed.
The water's flat and we skim across for an hour to the first pristine reef. The idea is that before we see the devastation, they want me to see a vibrant, healthy reef. There's just one problem. Much is already dead.
It's at least 50% mortality.
2 other spots and a lot of cursing later, we decide it's as good as we'll get. Scott and I splash in.
These are astounding colors. They're astounding colors, but that's not how corals are supposed to look.
What we see slaps the words out of everyone's mouth.
I want you to come and look at here. The structure and a variety of shapes in these pieces that have bleached.
We swim back to the surface.
Where do we head to now?
We're at Eddie Reef now.
I dived on this reef over 10 years ago with some other folks that I worked with at the time at NOAA.
Oh.
And at that time it was this amazing, beautiful, vibrant reef. There were sharks swimming around, cuttlefish that we saw, moray eels coming out from little bommies, and the corals looked magnificent.
Karen shows us what Eddie Reef looked like just months ago. Those coral radiating with color, branches long and unbroken, the water clear as vodka. But a startling difference awaits when we go back under.
I can remember this reef and the dive I had 10 years ago. That diversity of corals. This is the same reef, but it's not the same reef.
There's so much stuff floating around in the water, it's hard to see because it's basically coral carcass.
On this coral, you can see that full transition from right to left. Fluorescent coral recently, dead coral with algae overgrowing, and then dead coral for quite some time.
Still, there are fish, there are colors. We see this giant clam, and to the novice like me, it's still beautiful. And that is part of the problem.
1% what you see is alive and thriving. Around 80 to 90% of this reef is impacted.
We hop back on board. Bleached coral can recover, but much doesn't. Once the coral dies, the skeleton gets colonized by a shaggy carpet of algae.
It's all bleached.
It's all brown. So that's all the brown. That's not dead.
Yeah. Nothing dead here 12 weeks ago. Nothing dead. Wow.
The food chain that feeds the larger fish that in turn feed us, potentially cataclysmically affected. People who work on the reef, like Karen, say it's like having a death in the family. Many Australian lawmakers dispute Terry Hughes' numbers, even mocking conservationists. So do many in the country's $5 billion a year coral tourism industry.
Thank you.
We meet Cole McKenzie, the chief executive of Marine Park Tourism Operators in Cairns, the capital of reef tourism. Here you can take your pick of transportation to the reefs, boats, or even helicopters.
People like Terry Hughes and NOAA say that basically over the past 18 months, nearly 50% of the reef has died. You know, an additional portion has been bleached and may survive. But that's a significant mortality.
It is a significant mortality, and we would be absolutely in bits if it was true. Fortunately, it's just simply, it's in make-believe land.
Make-believe land?
Yep.
I mean, these are scientists. The government entrusts them. My government entrusts them. What's going on here? Are you saying that they're lying, or are they making it up?
I would think that NOAA is taking their advice from some of the scientists out here that are trying to make a political point.
Is there an exit ramp from the highway so many say we're on to ecological doom? The possible answer may lie 4,600 miles away on this tiny sliver of a Hawaiian island.